Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into Kristin Hanna's novel, The Women.
Oh, this one's going to be interesting.
It is. We're following Frances Frankie McGrath on her journey.
As an army nurse in Vietnam, right?
Exactly. And it's not just the war itself, it's how society back then viewed women veterans.
That's a good point. Right from the start,
Yeah.
there's this clash between how Frankie's family sees war
Oh, yeah.
and the reality she faces.
It's like two completely different worlds.
Absolutely. Like, her father never served himself.
Really?
But he has this whole hero narrative thing going on.
Oh, I know that type.
With the pictures of veterans on his office wall. All men, of course.
It makes you think, what is it about those narratives that are so appealing? Especially for those who haven't actually been in combat.
It's like those traditional ideas of heroism,
Uh-huh.
tied up with gender roles and all that.
Frankie's dad, he's got this romanticized view of war.
And it clashes so hard with Frankie's decision to enlist.
Makes total sense.
Right.
And then there's Frankie's brother, Finley,
Right, he died in Vietnam.
adding another layer to the family dynamics.
It really makes you wonder how much the family
Yeah.
projected their grief onto Frankie because of Finley.
Yeah. Like it was even harder for them to accept her choice because of his death.
Yeah, like they were stuck in this cycle of grief and denial.
Unable to deal with the reality of it all.
Totally. Then Frankie arrives in Vietnam and, oh boy,
What a change, huh?
it's sensory overload,
I bet.
The heat, the mud, the constant noise.
Coming from a sheltered life in Coronado?
Right. And then straight into the 36th Evacuation Hospital.
Wow.
Hannah doesn't hold back on those descriptions.
It's raw and real.
Yeah, the injuries, the deaths, all of it.
Definitely dismantles any romantic notions about war.
Definitely. But in the midst of all that chaos, she finds this incredible camaraderie.
With the other nurses, right?
Especially Ethel and Barb. They become her support system.
More than just friends, I imagine.
Absolutely. It's a lifeline in that kind of environment.
And we start to see the unique challenges these women faced.
Challenges that were often different from what the men went through.
And their service wasn't always valued in the same way.
Not at all. There's this pressure to be strong, to keep your emotions in check.
While witnessing unimaginable things.
I remember that scene with the young Vietnamese girl.
The one who gives Frankie a stone?
Yes. After losing her family,
It's a tiny gesture, but speaks volumes,
shows the human connection that can still exist.
even in that kind of devastation. And then, of course, we have to talk about love and loss.
Right. Frankie and Jamie.
That relationship was intense.
And tragic, especially with Jamie's death during the MedCap mission.
It really makes you think about the cost of love in wartime.
Like, how do you build a future when the present is so uncertain?
Exactly. Death was a constant presence. And it's a turning point for Frankie, that loss.
It forces her to confront her own mortality.
Then she seeks solace in another relationship, this time with Rye, the Navy pilot.
Ah, right. That one's complicated.
To say the least, finding out he was engaged the whole time.
Wow.
It's a betrayal on so many levels.
It shatters her trust and reinforces that sense of isolation.
Like the war itself betrayed her,
Yes, exactly. Leaving her disillusioned. This betrayal reinforces the isolation she feels even more, leading her
to seek out the comfort of her memories of Vietnam.
Exactly. And that longing to reconnect with the people who understand.
Barb and Ethel.
The bonds forged in war, they become her anchor.
But when she returns home, it's not the hero's welcome she imagined.
Right. It's silence, denial.
Society just doesn't seem to grasp what she and other women went through.
Their service is invisible.
And her father, with his hero's wall,
It's such a powerful symbol.
of a very limited definition of heroism.
He can't even see his own daughter's heroism. It's heartbreaking.
And that lack of recognition eats away at her.
It does. Contributes to her struggles, the alienation, the drinking. It shows the impact of war doesn't end when you come home.
The trauma lingers.
And it's made worse by the lack of understanding from those around her.
We need better support systems for veterans.
We absolutely do, especially for those whose stories haven't been heard.
Spaces where they can heal and feel seen,
Exactly, where their service is acknowledged and honored,
no matter their gender.
no matter their role. It's like Frankie's early days in Vietnam really shape how she sees the war, And even herself, she starts off so idealistic. But that 36th Evacuation Hospital, that's a real wake-up call.
Oh yeah, thrown right into the fire. Remember when she first walks into the ER?
Oh, brutal. Pure chaos. Medics rushing, wounded everywhere, the smell, everything. It sticks with you.
For Frankie, coming from Coronado, that must have been a total shock.
Talk about a shock.
Crushing her. Like, she goes from confident to questioning everything.
But she's tough. Doesn't give up. She's got Ethel and Barb.
They become her guides, right?
Totally. Been there, done that. Sharing what they've learned the hard way. Like when Ethel tells Frankie to ditch the uniform, the jacket.
Yeah. Practicality over idealism.
It's a shift. Adapting to survive. And survival in Vietnam, that was something else. Remember the rocket attack?
During that turtle party at the club. Terrifying. That constant threat always there.
And in that chaos, someone shields Frankie, whispering, "You're safe, McGrath. It gets me every time."
A tiny bit of humanity in the middle of it all. But it also shows, like, the deep impact of trauma.
Exactly. Trauma runs through the whole book, especially moral injury.
That conflict when you've done something or seen something, that goes against everything you believe.
Frankie comes in believing in the cause, but the war chips away at that.
Violence from both sides really makes her question what's right.
And she's seeing death constantly. It wounds her deeply. You see it in her relationships with Jamie.
That love story's so intense.
War speeds everything up, their connection. It's almost like a rebellion against death.
Makes his death during that medkit mission even harder.
So much harder. That illusion of control they had shattered.
It's like a loss of innocence for Frankie. That belief that love can overcome anything.
And the trauma sticks around. Then there's Rye, the Navy pilot.
Oh, Rye. Another level of hurt.
Finding out he was engaged the whole time, that cuts deep.
More than just romantic betrayal, right?
It is, like losing faith in people altogether. Another blow on top of everything else. And then she comes home to Coronado expecting...
A hero's welcome.
But it's silence, denial.
Nobody seems to get it. What she and the other women went through.
They're invisible. And her father with that hero's wall.
Such a specific idea of what a hero is.
He can't see his own daughter's heroism. It's tragic.
And it hurts her. Makes her feel worthless, contributes to the struggles, the drinking.
It really shows how war follows you home. The trauma, the grief, the feeling of not belonging.
Made worse because nobody understands when she tries to talk about it.
They push it away. It's easier to stick with the simple story, not the messy truth.
Her own family doing that, especially her father. So stuck on his hero narrative.
It shows how powerful those stories can be. Blind us to reality. Frankie's story reminds us that real heroes often go unnoticed.
Especially when they don't fit the mold.
And it's a long road to healing, needing help, finding connection, finding purpose.
It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving, reclaiming your life.
Exactly. And that's what we see Frankie doing, right? So she's searching for healing, for a place to belong, and that's what leads her to Barb and Ethel.
Together they create that ranch in Montana.
A haven for women veterans.
What a great idea.
It becomes more than just a place, it's like a symbol of their strength.
A testament to female solidarity, for sure.
They build this community where they can finally be themselves.
Where their experiences are understood.
They can heal together, away from all the judgment.
And through that healing, Frankie starts to find herself again.
She finds her passion for nursing again, too.
Helping other veterans.
Using her own pain to help others.
And that becomes a key part of her own recovery.
It's about finding meaning in those experiences.
And then there's that powerful scene at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
Oh, that scene.
It's more than just a place. It's like a character in the story.
It represents mourning, reflection, the enormity of the loss.
For Frankie, it's a chance to finally face her grief.
The pain she's carried for so long.
She sees Finley's name on the wall.
A stark reminder of her brother's sacrifice.
And for the first time, she lets herself feel it all.
That catharsis, that release, it's powerful.
And her father, he finally sees her too.
He's there with her at the memorial.
They share that grief, and it shifts something in their relationship.
The power of shared experience, it can bridge those divides.
The memorial becomes a place of remembrance.
Honoring everyone who served, no matter who they were.
But even with that piece, healing is still complicated.
It is. Frankie still has her struggles.
The alcoholism, the PTSD, the betrayal by Rye.
Healing isn't a straight line.
It's full of ups and downs.
But even through that, Frankie's resilience shines through.
She never gives up.
She leans on her friends, finds her passion again.
Builds a new life for herself.
Full of purpose and meaning.
And that purpose goes beyond her own healing.
She becomes an advocate for other veterans.
Fighting for them to be recognized and supported.
It's about making the world a better place.
And then that ending, it's both sad and hopeful.
Running in a Rye again.
Years later, married with a child.
So much tension in that moment.
The love is still there, but so is the hurt.
Kristin Hanna doesn't give us easy answers.
Frankie could easily fall back into old patterns,
But she walks away.
leaving Rye behind on that beach.
As she drives away, you feel that sense of closure.
She's free from the past.
That image of Frankie driving towards the unknown, it's powerful.
Healing is a journey, not a destination.
The Women is such a powerful story.
It's about resilience, friendship, the impact of war.
Frankie's journey makes us question our own ideas about war and heroism.
It challenges us to think critically, to advocate for a better world. It's a story that makes you think long after you finish reading it,
Makes you think about how we can support those who served.
especially those whose stories haven't been told.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, think about how Frankie's journey speaks to you.
How does it connect with your own understanding of resilience and healing?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Women.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.